and welcome back to another episode of the Healing for the Soul podcast. We have a special guest with us today. Her name is Susan. Thank you so much, Susan, for coming on. I'm super excited to introduce you and hear your story. So thank you for coming on. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Susan. Tell us about who you are, what you do.
Yeah, Heather, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me as a guest on your podcast. I'm
Yes.
so honored to be here. So a little bit about me is I was a massage therapist for 35 years, and I loved my practice. And really, from the time I was 25 when I started my practice, and I was so grateful, to find that way of being in the world that was resonant for me, and really helped me to use my skills and my talents of working with people. And you can imagine after 35 years how I was done. I was losing my heart for it. My body was telling me I needed to do something different. And somebody had mentioned to me years previous to lean into or check out hypnosis training. And I was like, I just couldn't see my way there at that time. I didn't have the confidence. I had so many limiting ideas about myself that I couldn't get out of my own way. Right. And so now I was in this position where I really needed to lean into what was going to be next. And I had an aha moment, which I was looking for. And in that aha moment, it was almost like, oh, go get that hypnosis training.
Yeah.
Right. That like knowing where it just kind of fell in. And that was 6 years ago. And so, what I've really been able to do is take that ability to help people learn how to relax on a physical level and really expand that out into a more emotional, psychological, and spiritual level. And so
Yeah.
that's the work that I do now is, essentially when people ask me, what do you do? I help you rewrite the story that you've created to keep yourself safe.
Right.
Right. And we all have those. We all have those beliefs and feelings about ourselves and I know you are feeling me, Heather, because we're on a similar path in terms of how we help people. And I believe that it is our birthright to thrive.
Yeah, me too.
We're suffering is part of the process, but we're not really here to suffer. We're here to enjoy this physical life and enjoy this, planet that we live on, and just being as much of and as fully ourselves as we can be. So that's what I love to do, is to help people kind of clear the decks and get whatever's in the way of you feeling that sense, that ability of thriving. Nothing makes me happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely are on very similar paths and have definitely parallels in how we approach the healing journey. So I definitely love that. And I love that, it was divine timing. I love how the seeds are planted for you along the way. And then when the time is right, it unfolds. I was actually interviewed yesterday on a lot of manifesting questions in a different group. And that was one of the main things that I, said in that interview was what's meant, you don't manifest what you want. You manifest who you are and what you're meant for.
Yeah.
And you can't really outrun who you're meant to be. And I love your story because that's a pretty good example of, even though things seemingly held you back for a while, you were always meant to get there anyways, no matter how it looked or whatever. And so I love that because I think that that's a really good example. Because I think there's a good portion of people out there that are working really hard in this industry as a coach or as a healer or as, somebody who wants to help people have a more joyful or peaceful life. And I think the stress is coming from these there's so much noise on you should be making a whole bunch of money or you're not actually helping people or this, that, and the other thing. And I talk a lot about that stuff because I think that that's just not true. And And it can really cause a lot of limitations
Yeah.
for the healers who, because I know for me, and the brain is a million years old, or however thousands of years old, right? So we're so programmed and so used to knowing the past. And especially as healers, I don't know if you experienced this, but I know that I experienced this when I was first stepping into my healing powers. There was a little bit of, you know, it's scary to step in as a psychic or a hypnosis person or a meditation person or a healer, because there's, a lot of stigma around that, and it being, bad. And there's so many people abusing it now. And it's so sad. You see all these documentaries about the people just using it to scam other people. And I'm like, I'm like, I hate that I'm in these categories of people sometimes. Like I will,
Yeah.
will use this that way. Did you feel when you was that part of your resistance to stepping in to the healing realms?
I'm not, I don't really think so much that way, because for me it's more a question of integrity, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know who you are, I know who I am, I know how I show up. The people who are going to be subject to, or listen to, or like kind of lean into that kind of thoughts, and they're not our clients,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, they're not our people, the people who would narrate. But and I totally hear you. I hear that. I think my thing was like, cuz it's just such an amazing experience to be able to step into the multi-dimensional, experience of the human experience, being able to experience yourself not only physically but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And for people to turn it into these games that they've turned it into, it's like
yeah.
it you know it only furthers the skepticism.
Yeah, I think it's like, no matter what, and I will always tell my clients this, and in my sharing with people, if you reach out to someone, or if you see someone and they're putting themselves out there in a way to say, I've got it all wired, and I've got everything you need, and all of that kind of stuff, I run the other way,
Yeah, me
because
too.
that is the pain body, like that, like we have that part of ourselves, and that is the ego, right? The pain body ego, where we're operating from those programs,
Yeah.
that are those programs that I spoke about, of those things that we've created to keep ourselves safe. um it's the pain body is a beautiful thing, because the triggers show us where we need to grow, and what we need to learn, and what needs to um but it also gives us that opportunity to heal, right? And so there is that other aspect of looking at that and seeing some of those things that you see out there in the world, and just kind of saying, oh, I wish you well, I hope
Yeah.
you can grow, I hope that like you
Well,
figure
and
that
I
out somewhere along the way. Yeah.
and everything is happening exactly the way that it's supposed to be happening. Like there's always a plan for something. So I kind of I hear you there too. I usually don't get too caught up into it. I think it's just more so I I just hope that, well, and again, like you were saying, who's meant for us is going to know better. And I agree with that too. So for the people that it's entertaining, they're probably not our people anyways. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me a little bit about what it is. So hypnosis, clinical hypnosis, is that right? Am I saying that right?
Correct.
Um,
Yeah.
a little bit about do you do like past life regression, like what is so tell me. I've dabbled in a little bit of it because I'm a meditation instructor, so I know
Right.
meditation and hypnosis are pretty similar, but I know that they probably have different techniques. So tell me a little bit about like those processes, or what can come up, or what the benefits are from something like that.
Yeah. So, essentially for me, the difference, because I meditated since I'm 25, I've been meditating, right? The difference between hypnosis and meditation really teaches us how to go inside,
Yeah.
how to be still, how to, learning that mindfulness of how to allow the thoughts to come and go, because we are not built to not think. So anyone who says, I can't meditate, you just have the wrong definition of what meditation is,
Yeah. I
right?
agree.
Because it's a practice and it's learning how to go inside. With hypnosis, the little added, and it is very similar, but the added piece in my experience anyway, is that we have a desired outcome.
Yeah.
So people will seek out a hypnotist for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's a phobia or a fear that they want to clear, or maybe it is an addiction to something. And addiction, could be substance, but it could also be addiction to thinking a certain way, or to addicted to our habits, right? Like I recently, okay, I have an addiction to these grain-free pretzels that I found. So, but it's really what we're doing in hypnosis is we're accessing the subconscious part of the mind.
Yeah.
And in that, it's so a hypnotist or a hypnotherapist will guide you in and lead you to the changes that need to be made. So if you are, for instance, like let's take very simply someone who smokes,
Yeah.
we can clear the desire for the cigarette, but we need to replace it with a better habit.
Yes.
And so, in that state of accessing the subconscious mind, we make those changes simply by suggestion.
Yeah.
And um, and also, there's a certain amount of convincing ourselves, right? We have to convince ourselves that this is what I want. This is where I'm at. I do not, I am ready to be a non-smoker. I'm ready to give up this habit or this fear because it may have helped me at one time, but it's not helping me now.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
No. And yeah, and maybe I definitely probably have crossed the two, meditation and hypnosis, because I will guide my clients through very similar what you're talking about, where something's coming up for them, a fear or some sort of emotional blockage, and we go in through a meditative state
Right.
and go in and we talk to those emotions, or we talk to those fears, or we find that place within the body, and we do whatever intuitively comes up that we need to do to clear it, or to build a new relationship with it. And then, like you said, it has to, have a new plan of action or a new job that it's going to take over. And then, like you said as well, sometimes, especially deeper ingrained limitations or addictions or things like this, have to, it's one of those things. It's not a one and done, boom, it's over. It's that repetition. It's uh the commitment of focus,
Yeah.
and focusing on the new narrative, and it can take time. I remember when I first started my healing journey for myself. I remember that was like my first commitment, was anytime I noticed a negative thought come up, or like if I was like beating myself up or being mean to myself or telling myself that I wasn't doing a good enough job. Because I had a bad habit of, if something happened or if something went wrong, I'd be like, well, look at you, how stupid are you, what are you doing? And I had a really bad habit of talking to myself that way. And there was a clear pattern of being treated that way as a child, like I should be smarter than I am for my age. And so as a young adult, that's how I'm treating myself. I'm like, you're so stupid. You should know this. You should get this right the first time. Um, and that really created a disconnect from myself. And I had a really hard time having a good relationship with myself because of those inner dialogues that I had. And so that was my first commitment, was every time that negative self-talk came up, I committed to saying, you know what, wait a minute, I'm not going to say that to myself. How can I say something a little bit kinder that's more empowering? So, and I also found along that journey that trying to say the opposite, like going from I'm ugly to I'm beautiful, is actually more harmful. At least it was for me. And I saw it in a lot of other people around me too, that saying the opposite or trying to convince ourselves of the opposite without finding a truthful, like middle ground to really allow the body to agree with it, it could be actually more harmful, because then you just feel like you're lying to yourself, you know? So whenever I was getting upset, feeling ignorant or stupid at something because of a mistake, I didn't just go from, you know what, no, Heather, you're not stupid. You're super intelligent. You've got this. You know everything, right? Like I went from a middle ground. Like, no, Heather, you're not stupid. You're learning. This is
Yes.
the doing this. And so it wasn't like I was like blowing smoke up under my hood to try to get myself to be positive. I was just telling myself something more compassionate.
Yeah.
It was a truth. And because that truth and that compassion and truth, what allowed me to really say, you know what, I can believe in myself when I say that. And it was that evidence. And I had to do that for like, I remember about 2 months into doing that, I noticed significant change. And then I noticed around the 3-month point, there wasn't like oh, wow. It's just like one day you just realize, wow, I haven't said anything negative in my mind in a while. Like, I don't remember. And so one day you just kind of wake up and you're like, wow, like my inner dialogue has changed. And I can see that. You don't know when. It's not like on April 24th at 3:00, I never had a negative thought again. But one day you do. You just wake up and you're like, wow, I haven't really had to correct myself or change a thought. So it's a really cool experience.
I love that. And I got to share something else that came up while you were talking. I have a friend, so she's a hypnotist also, and we were at a big conference last year together. And this is the best. This is hypnosis at its best. We were doing something. I don't remember what we were doing, but I turned around and I said to her, "Oh, I'm such an idiot." And she looked at me and she said, "Don't talk mean to my friend." Do you know, since that day, when something like that comes up, I hear her voice in my head say,
Oh,
"Don't talk mean to my friend."
I love that.
And it's like, it's a quick suggestion that it changes the state that you're in.
Yeah, it changes your whole energy and everything, that like the way that you're sitting, the attitude that you're having towards the day.
Yeah.
When they say that your thoughts create your reality, I think it can be confusing, because then we think, oh, well, if I just think about money, I'll just have a bunch of money, right? And that's not necessarily true. What I think that statement really is pointing to is the energy and the attitudes and the experiences that we're having in our day-to-day life. Because when we have these negative thoughts, or everything is going wrong and I'm in the negative Nelly state, and this is a bad day and everybody is messing everything up. When we're in that state, we're automatically going to be prone to being more sluggish or tired or worn out, drained. But if we can take a moment to challenge ourselves to say, okay, I can tell that I am focused on what is going wrong. What is going well? Is there anything that I can point out that is going well? And so, and then we have to challenge ourselves to think about, did anything good happen that day? Is there anything that you're thankful for in this moment that can kind of turn the energy around so that we can create a new experience? So when someone says your thoughts create your reality, I think that that's really what that means. Not necessarily you can think of whatever and something will appear, but more so you can change your energy. And when you can change your energy, you can change your results. Because think about it, if you've got more energy, you might go take some action. Whereas if you're drained and sluggish, you probably aren't going to take any action that day. And so, not that, again, kind of speaking to you know, your experience. I do believe we're all going to get where we're meant to be at some point. But there comes a time where I think we get to take control. And that's when or not full control, obviously, but like a little bit more control of our energy and the way we take action and the way we show up and who we're being, when we realize we have a choice. And when we realize we have an ability to change our energy. Because I remember a clear distinction before I started my healing journey. I was under the impression that I just had to take the day as it came. And I had no control over my energy or how I was showing up or who I was being. I was just a circumstance of cause and effect. And that's how I felt. I really believed that there was no other, like, that's just, things were just happening to me. And however I reacted was how I was going to react. And there was nothing I could do about it.
Right.
But then something happened, and, you know, I was so stressed out. It was pretty significant. My body was starting to shut down, and I had a really scary vision of ending in a similar fate as my father, who had a massive heart attack that just took him out immediately. And I had a 8-month-old at the time. And so when I had that vision and I was so stressed, I heard this voice, and it was like, you have a choice. You can change your energy, change what you're doing, change your behaviors, change how you're showing up, change your decisions, and then have a new experience, or you can stay the same and you're going to end up in this fate. And so, of course, that was the first time I was like, wait a minute, I have a choice here. Oh, wait a minute, I have a choice in where I'm headed. And then that set the stage for me becoming obsessed with learning how to be the creator of your reality. And again, that doesn't mean you can just manifest money or do crazy things, but being in control of your reality is being in control of your energy.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I want to share something with you and with your listeners on that level. First of all, when you realize, when you get, and you just said it so succinctly, you know, when you get that realization that I'm actually choosing to be where I am right now, it gives you so much more power. Like, you feel so much more empowered inside of that and that's the basis of, I do that with many of my clients. Probably 99% of the people that I work with, we do an exercise around that, because if you can't make that leap into recognizing that you're choosing where you are on some level,
right,
it's going to be really hard to change it. Right.
Yeah.
And the being able to maintain that. So I wanted to share with you, I recently got massively triggered.
Yeah.
Now I'm pretty good. I've been doing this work since 40 years now. Right. So like, good practices but an old layer, a deeper level of a feeling that, for me, one of my big issues is feeling disregarded or disrespected, right? And I was massively triggered into feeling disrespected. It was a family situation and I didn't know what to do. I could not find my voice to express what was going on for me or to address with the person that I was feeling disrespected by. I couldn't go there. And I had a physical, visceral reaction. The anger, the rage was so big. And I knew enough in the moment to know that it was not about this other person. It was about what was being triggered in me. And so, and there were 2 or 3 things. This was over a course of a weekend. There were like a few things that happened that just kind of led up to this, and I sat down on the couch and I was like, okay, number one, what do I need to feel this right now? Or do I need to just make a different choice in this moment? Can I shift it? What do I need to do with this? What is this trigger here to show me? Like, what, I wasn't grateful for the situation, but I was grateful for the opportunity. I knew there was going to be big, right?
Yes.
And sitting on the couch, I was like, and here I am, I'm talking to myself and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Oh my God, you teach other people how to be empowered. And here you are in this disempowered state and blah, blah, blah. Like all the shit is going on, excuse me, in my
No.
head, and I'm like, I'm going through it. And then I was like, what would you tell a client who presented with the situation? And and I sat with that for a few minutes and I was like, ugh, I couldn't find my way out. Well, we got in the car because we were going out for dinner, and I'm in the car. I'm like on the verge of tears. And I just like haven't had this kind of intensity around this in a long time. And we're in the car and it just hit me. It's like, what I would tell a client, one of the things that I might offer is to just do a little bit of Ho'oponopono, which I don't know if you're familiar with it, it's a forgiveness practice, right? It's 4 statements. And I just started, listeners can Google Ho'oponopono. It's very easy to find. And there's a lot of information on the internet.
Yeah.
But I started to run the words to bring myself back to a state of neutral,
Yeah.
so that I could be in the moment without this rage and this intensity. And by the time we got to the restaurant, it was about 10 minutes in the car. My nervous system came to balance. I felt regulated. We went in, we were at hibachi. So how can you not have a good time at a hibachi, right? I mean, just throwing food in my face,
Yeah.
It was great. And the next morning, I was able to have a conversation that was productive
Yeah.
and clear and addressing the points that I felt disrespected by without blame and judgment. And so some of that leads me to the idea of frequency and using the tools that we offer, Heather, our clients, to use the tools that we teach them in order to be able to self-regulate in those moments where those triggers come. And it's good. Triggers are good. Like, they're meant to give us that opportunity to even elevate further. And the more that we do that work and we can elevate our frequency, the more we can show up for our families, the more we can show up in our jobs, the more we can be in the world in a way that feels like, oh, I'm in a place.
Yeah, we're not in this place of chaos and self-destruction,
Yeah,
because when you feel out of control, that's usually the outcome, is we self-destruct. We self-sabotage, we cause conflict, and we're not meaning to, but because we can't even calm ourselves down, we come out in that judgmental, defensive way, and we're automatically setting ourselves up to kind of fail, because now the other person is on guard.
right.
And I tell that story because it's a really good example of, this work is not to solve your problems or to make sure you never ever have a bad day ever again, or that nobody ever triggers you. It happens a lot less, and I think you share that too, in just saying it. I can go a long time without having a rough patch, but every once in a while it's still going to happen. The work is yes, it's going to allow you to not have that chaos as much. It's definitely going to go way down. I know it did for me, and it probably did for you too, Susan. But it doesn't mean it's never going to come up again. But
Right.
the cool part about it is now you've got these tools. And how I help clients get to mastery, because I have a similar forgiveness practice to Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher the name, but I'm familiar with it. Whenever I was learning energy healing, they taught us the Ho'oponopono forgiveness practice. And so I do, my forgiveness practice is similar. The goal anyways is similar. We got to get to a neutralized state, and then we can get to a place of, okay, releasing and moving forward and reconciliation. And so, yeah, I love that. But I think your story, represents what these tools can do for you in the long term, whenever you figure out how to practice the things that are on the surface. So for my clients to get to mastery, when they first come to me, they're riddled with the stress and all the noise and the voices and all the resentments and the judgments. And so we learn the tools and then we apply them over and over and over again for a 3 to 6 month period. But what I find and what they find is after that 3 and 6 month period, because they've done it so many times in a guided way and in a way where they were supported and they got through the entire exercise and they learned how to do it, and their brain connected those wires on how to get through that process and how to get through those imbalances. And 3 to 6 months down the line of doing it a few times over and over again in different situations, a new situation comes up. They're, without even realizing, sometimes they're just automatically looking for that tool. They're like you did, the shit's coming up. What's wrong with you? You just spent 6 months learning all this stuff and you're not even getting it right. And then finally you get to, oh, you know what? Let me try this exercise that I learned. And then you do the exercise and you find yourself being able to get out of those frenzies that used to keep you there for a whole week, or cause you to have a breakup, or cause you to lose a friend or disconnect from family members. Now, instead, you don't have to go through these breakups or disconnects, because now you've worked through the thing and you've been able to, like you said, productively reconcile the situation because you've got these tools. So that's the difference. And it's not that, because I know so much, I have to remind my clients and my students and my listeners often that just because something comes up again doesn't mean you didn't do it right.
Correct.
Yeah. And so I love that story. That's a good story.
What it actually means is that you're getting somewhere.
Yes.
Because the goal is to, learn and grow. The goal is not, like, there is no perfection.
Yes.
The perfection is in the practice.
Yes.
And there is a part of our brain that is like, it's a memory processor, and it will guide us to, like, what actions create what outcomes. Okay, so for me, I had a deep, deep belief that I was not worthy of being heard. And in my brain, because at the time that was created, it definitely kept me safe. Like that, believing that in that moment I was shut down in a particular way, and it was very harsh. And I had fear and shame around that, and I felt like, oh, I'm not really, worthy here. And I'm losing my train of thought. Like, do you ever get that happen where you're like, you have something and you can almost feel it going? Like, it's like, oh, where was I going with that? So this, this fear and shame around not being worthy to be heard, this part of my brain in that moment, what that did for me was it shut me down. And the shutting down kept me safe in that moment, because I probably, the person on the other end probably would have hit me in the head, if I didn't stop where I was. And so that became a core belief for me, right? And I practiced that over and over again. And we look for evidence outside of ourselves. We'll look for it because we're wired for that. We're wired for negativity and we're wired for protection. And so we're always looking for the saber-toothed tiger, right? And so in situations where, so for instance, if I was in a conversation with somebody and they cut me off in the middle of a sentence, where my brain would be, oh yeah, see, they don't really want to hear what you have to say. They won't even let you finish a sentence. It may have nothing to do with me. It may be that person was very excited to share something and couldn't wait, and so in the healing of that, the repetition and taking action toward what are the new beliefs. If I'm not believing that I'm not worthy to be heard now, if what I'm believing is that I am worthy to be heard and I have a lot of cool stuff to share and it's safe to put myself out there, I have to action those things and I have to repeat those new beliefs to myself, because that's how it works. That's that part of that brain needs that point of reference in order to concretize that thing, in order to really set it in stone and make that the new behavior, the new way that we are moving through. And so I'm echoing what you said about that. It's that repetition and also taking action.
Well, and I like what you were saying there too, like looking for the new perspective, just continuously, because like you were saying, like one voice, has this idea that, oh, they cut me off, so I don't want to be heard. But if you take a step back and you're like, what else could be true about that?
Right.
You're like, no, maybe they're just excited to share and they didn't probably even mean to. They probably didn't even notice that they did it, but they want to talk to me so much
Right.
that they couldn't wait to talk. And then you can automatically hear it when you say it out loud, the difference of energy. It's like, oh wow, yeah, they cut me off. They must not have wanted to talk to me. And then what does that also do? That creates a whole loop of things. Number one, now your energy is low. Number two, now you're not listening to the person that's talking. And so you can't even be excited or have a good, connection with that person, because now you're disconnected from yourself. Now you're disconnected from that person. And it's all because of something that you don't even know for sure if it was true. And 9 times out of 10, those negative thoughts that come up, they're not the truth. That's not what was happening at all. It was an assumption made by the mind because
Right.
of past experience that the mind is still reliving, like you were saying, and we don't know it. It's so unconscious until it becomes conscious. And what we are normally conscious of is, God, I feel so anxious and depressed all the time, or I have no energy. I feel so fatigued. That's usually what we're conscious of, but it's something as simple, or I don't know if simple is the right word, but it's something as little or whatever as feeling like we aren't able to be heard, or we're not worthy to be heard. And that can be unconsciously creating depression, unconsciously creating fatigue, unconsciously creating self-sabotage and self-destruction and a disconnect in relationships. And so on the conscious level, we're like, why are all of my relationships just so annoying? I'm just so frustrated with everyone. I'm so frustrated with myself. And we don't realize there's something underneath all of that, and that needs to be brought to the surface. And like you said, the best way is to notice those triggers, because those triggers are the roadmap to what's going to bring you down to the root of what is actually causing all the problems up on the top. Because all the problems on the top, they're not even real. That's what's so funny. They're just an illusion. They're just an
Right.
illusion of whatever the root is happening. And so if you are having a chaotic experience up top, just know that most likely there's an illusion, there's a root of an illusion that's creating this chaos. And the illusion is this lie or this narrative that we've taken on.
Well, if you look at the word belief, BELIEF, what is in the middle of the word belief? A lie.
Lie. Yeah. Yes, I am right there with you.
Yeah.
And back on anything that, any dogma, anything that we place dogma on, or like it has to be this way, you can only be successful going this way, or if you don't do it this way, there's something wrong with you, or something bad's going to happen to you. I push back on the dogma because I personally don't believe that's the way the universe works. And anytime we place dogma on something, you're limiting it. You're limiting it, and our universe is unlimited potential. So
Right.
you can't do it. You just can't do the
Yeah.
limit.
It's important to remember too that, we are sovereign beings.
Yes,
I'm here to learn what I'm here. I'm here to experience what I'm here to experience. And
exactly.
we're all connected. We're all part of this greater energy. So to me, there is no right. Of course, there's right and wrong, but however you choose to do what you're going to do, you're completely sovereign and again, that's our birthright, is to choose how we go through that. Something else though that you brought up that this kind of sunk in for me is that when some of the things, like when I think about that people cutting me off thing, I used to be a big cutter offer. I used to cut people off, and my friends who love me would say, you have to stop doing that. You have to stop cutting people off like that. It was part of that survival
Yeah.
for me. It was part of that wanting to be wanting to be heard, wanting to be a part of, right? And nothing bothers you more in someone else that you yourself are not doing.
Exactly. Exactly. And you're right about, usually what we are taking in from other people, like what we are absorbing, and usually those absorptions are our assumptions of what's the other person is thinking.
Mhm.
We are also simultaneously usually projecting those things out onto other people too. And so I like to look at the world as a mirror, like I call it the mirror verse, because our relationships, you know, our perception of them is an awareness of ourselves, and their perception of us is an awareness of themselves, but we don't know what's going on in other people's little world, because like you said, we are here for our own unique experiences. I'm connecting with Susan right now, but I don't know what's in her world, because she's got this unique universe going on, and she's connected with me, but I have my own unique universe, and outside of this we have totally separate realities. We're on a totally different timeline and dimension here. And it's so cool that all these timelines and dimensions are right on top of each other right now. There's two dimensions colliding right now in this podcast interview. That's the way I like to look at it. I think it's cool because we have our own unique things, and when we take a step back to stop assuming about what other people are doing just because of our own experiences, and we start to realize none of that's true. We get to create a new experience of ourselves and the people around us, because I was able to heal my relationship with my mom. I got 4 years with her before she passed away last year, 4 good years. And I'm 26. So the first 22 years were bad. Me and my mom had a terrible relationship. We were constantly fighting, constantly being, rude to each other. I didn't respect her. She didn't respect me. We were completely off the grid with each other. But then that this started of this work, and I started to realize all those things and those stories that I had spun about her weren't even true. And well, not that they're not necessarily true. Of course, she made mistakes. She had flaws, but me making it about she doesn't love me, that wasn't true. Or just because she had her own trauma and she dealt with things in a way that, hurt my feelings, never meant she didn't love me. But it always came back to that root of she's abandoned me. She doesn't love me. She doesn't want me. I'm an unwanted child. I'm not even supposed to exist. And two, that was deep rooted because she was an alcoholic. So when I was little, she would always tell me about how she didn't even want me. She didn't want a second child. But by the universe was bound to have me. But I didn't hear the universe wanted me so bad. I heard, oh, I'm not supposed to be here.
Mm.
I'm not supposed to exist. And so my existence from a very young age, I tried to not exist. And there were some funny things that happened with that too, because my running away from existence, I actually got super overweight really quickly. So not only did I not want to exist, but I was always the biggest person in the room, or always felt like the biggest person in the room. So I always felt like I was standing out. And so, but in a terrible way. And
Yeah.
so it was a crazy experience growing up with these beliefs, and then also as an adult unraveling it all. It all made sense as to why I was acting the way that I was, because of the story that was playing in my head. That was just a big assumption. All of it was just a big assumption of things that were just not true because I didn't have enough information.
Yeah. Well, as you're sharing that, and thank you for sharing that vulnerability there. Um, Good on you. And for to be like, not for anything, but I'm 40 some years older than you, right? Like, thank goodness that you have done the work that you've done and have gotten to this place where you're able to turn all of that into something really useful and helpful for other people, to guide people along. That's such a beautiful statement about who you are and your
Um,
purpose here. So, yeah.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I think we're getting close to an hour here now, so I think that this has been a wonderful chat with you, Susan, so far. So, just wrapping us up, I just want to make sure if people want to connect with you, let us know what you've got going on, what's going on in your world. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, the best place really right now, I everything is pretty much on social media, Facebook. I have an Instagram and a LinkedIn account, but I'm upgrading my website to reflect also what my, I'm putting events on my website. I'm doing some changes to my website. So you can read more about how I work and what I do at susanmarco.com. And all of my presence is Susan Marco. It's all, so you just only have to remember my name. That's it.
Okay, perfect. And your name, we can see it on the video here, and I'll make sure to put the links in the description box so if people want to go down your rabbit holes, they can. Because
Thanks.
that's what I like to say. If people come into my world, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can go down the rabbit holes here.
Right, that's right. Right,
I
and
love.
also, I want to touch on this. It's beautiful to have this kind of collaboration in this conversation because there's absolutely no competition in this world because there are at different times in different places we need different things
Exactly.
for
And
growth.
if you share this on your with your audience, there's something that your people might see in me and say they want, to do something with me, and my audience might see something in you. And I don't know who I would be to stand in the way of that expansion, because I just want, if people are wanting to heal, then I love giving the opportunity for that, no matter what that looks like, whether it's with me or somebody else. I am all for this journey and people wanting to go on it and getting with the right person that's going to help them, get what they're looking for. And
Yeah,
I've had multiple mentors. So, I don't think that I think who's your tribe is always going to just flock to you no matter what. So,
yeah,
like you said, I don't believe that there's any competition in anything. I think we all have a similar goal. We all just want to help people create more peace so that there can be more peace in the world at large. And, we ripple effect. And, I see it all the time in my students and my clients. They go and then they apply what they did for themselves, and they see change in their husbands, or they see change in their children and their mom and me. Saw it in my mom. I saw it in many people. And
yeah.
so it ripples, and it's powerful. And I'm thankful. Like I said, I got 4 good years with my mom. I could have had none, you know,
Right.
and been after she passed to be resentful, but instead I'm more at peace. Of course, I miss her. I have grief, but I'm at peace. I don't feel like I left anything unsaid, or I don't feel like I didn't get to show her, man, I wish I could have just loved her while I got to do all those things. I don't have that regret.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's so important. And the more relationships I can help people heal with, the more I help people heal that relationship within themselves, and the more people like you are able to help do the same thing, we do. It's that ripple, that wave effect. And that's what's important to me, is that just bringing people back into unison with themselves and each other. Because I think that that's what's going to matter at the end of the day, whether the world changes and we're in a new world, or the world, whatever, is falling apart. It doesn't matter. I think the connection ultimately is what matters. So no matter where we're headed, but I think that this was a very awesome episode. So I really hope that if you guys enjoyed this, you guys will share it with people that you think will benefit. And make sure you're subscribed so you get future episodes with other special guests, and whatever else adventures this podcast goes under. And with all of that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and we will see you guys in the next one. So thank you, Susan, for being here.
Amen. Thank you.